Sometimes the biggest monsters have the prettiest faces. You can't just trust that people that are nice to you and kind and charismatic, not everybody that's nice to you has nice intentions.
Hollywood Demons, Episode 1, Stephen Collins, also known as America's Dad. Even though we've had a lot of nominations for America's Parents, and I just want to throw this out there. Maybe we should stop nominating people as parental figures that we've never met and don't know in real life. So there's that. But this is a series that is on Max and it is run by Investigation Discovery, and it kind of delves into a lot of these characters in Hollywood that were put on a pedestal that they definitely should not have been on. Before we even get started, a couple things. You will not be hearing me say allegedly because he has admitted these things several times. He was recorded admitting it. And on the other side, these things that we're going to be talking about, it's very hardcore subject matter, and that's not something that you can handle right now. That's totally fine. I'll catch you at the next one. That being said, let's get going.
Who is Stephen Collins?
Stephen Collins, to me, is not only one of the finest actors, but one of the finest human beings in Hollywood.
There weren't a lot of people interviewed about him because there's a problem getting people to come and do interviews, and the only people that will come and do interviews about Stephen Collins are typically men. And men who, oddly enough, this was filmed in very recently, still have very high opinions of him, even though they'll admit later on that they didn't even try to look into the evidence, understand what was going on. Jeremy London, who you might remember from Mallrats, but maybe you don't because that movie came out 30 years ago this year, or he was on Seventh Heaven, felt the need to defend Stephen because he says he knows what it's like to lose your career over something you didn't do. And with Jeremy, it was two somethings he didn't do on two completely separate occasions on top of a laundry list of other stuff, so.
The only ones who've ever worked with him that we are able to interview, they're all guys.
They're all the men. Well, the fact that the women don't want to talk about it, to me, I think it's probably more a sign of how mixed their feelings are. They probably had a deep affection for him, and they're conflicted in terms of trying to understand how they can have such an affection for a monster. Let's be fair.
Oh, Drew Pinske. If we could hold back on the speaking for women thing, especially considering the ultrasound you did on a 17-year-old's chest to prove if it was real, we're not going to do that. Not to mention, do you think maybe outside of that, it might also have something to do with the fact that we have more to lose, the repercussions are different, it's a very, very tenuous industry, and you guys are still talking nice about this guy. Dr. Drew Courtney Stodden ultrasound, and that was broadcast on live TV, so someone who would engage in that amongst the laundry list of other things, no. But he did get a couple things right in this, because even broken clocks are right twice a day, so I will be cutting him out quite a bit, but we'll include a little. I found that very interesting because the only people who are willing to say anything on behalf of this man are other men that he worked with, not a woman in sight. And the women in this documentary who are speaking out against him, one of them is someone that he came after. But how did he get himself to this level of fame? So the first big one, not necessarily the one that put him on the map, but the first big one he credits to starting to get more roles was Star Trek, the motion picture. Then he moved on to another movie, The Promise, a movie about a corporate heir whose mother has decided to pay for the plastic surgery of a disfigured person on one condition. Apparently it was a big one, I've never seen it, but damn. Then he goes on to another claim to fame, The Golden Monkey, which is described as an Indiana Jones knockoff and had one season which it had gripping scenes like this.
If you do not hold me, I'm afraid I will crumble into little pieces.
When men write women, because he had specifically requested to have a love interest on the show, and I think he probably did that because their first scene together was completely inappropriate. However, that is Faye, who ended up being his wife, but is responsible for the reason that everyone finally found out what happened because she recorded him admitting everything he did.
Grabs her, and I looked at Steve. This was not acting. He got a look on his face. Because the first time they hugged, first time they got that close, and he kind of started shaking a little. And cut. Finally, they released each other. And that was the moment. And Steve told me, after that hug, I realized I'm going to marry that girl.
Although a 25-year-old Faye Grant would become the wife of a 35-year-old Stephen Collins, at that moment, they had never met each other. And we need to put it in this context, because this guy, and this is probably why only men talk about him, is talking about it like it's a romantic story, and it was so cute. But let's put it in its real context. You are at work. And this happens, there's a room full of people and no one is doing anything to stop it. Like, hello, I know it's the 80s, but HR, can we get you in here? No, we can't, I know. Stephen continues to work in Hollywood, has a great reputation. Everyone says he's the greatest guy, he's so sweet. But the niece of one of his neighbors might contend a little different story than that.
So I was inside and I was in my nightgown and I look up and I see Stephen Collins He was in the courtyard. He was going left to right. And he had a wad of clothes in his hands. And he was completely naked.
That is April Price. She had come to Los Angeles to stay with her aunt for the summer in 1983. Her aunt also happened to be the neighbor of Stephen Collins. And a little foreshadowing, we'll go more into this later, but he ended up many years later writing a spicy novel about some kind of interaction with a young girl in an apartment who was staying with her sister. So I guess we just changed sister from aunt. Price was 13 years old at the time, and Collins immediately started working on her to test these boundaries and also use his position of power as an actor that she liked. He was offering her headshots to look at memorabilia, a lot of stuff like this, plus several incidents over the course of the summer.
April Price's situation, that's a test to me. And I believe he wants to see what she's going to do. He wants to see if she's going to run away, she's going to be disgusted, she's going to tell everybody.
When you think about these situations, and I don't think a lot of people readily realize how long the G word goes on, G-R-O-O-M-I-N-G. TikTok does not like that word, but it takes a long time, and they test things to see what they can get away with. Next incident comes when her mom ships her out her Atari because she's kind of bored, she wants something to do, and if you don't know what an Atari is, I'm not explaining it because that would make me feel a certain way. But she asks Stephen, hey Stephen, I have this aux cord, I don't know how to install it. And he's like, oh sure, I can help you with that.
He turned around and his jeans were completely open and he's completely exposed.
At this point, she's trying to logic this, like he has a girlfriend, he's super famous. No, he couldn't be doing that. He couldn't be doing that. And the first question people always ask, and I just don't, it's been long enough, you should understand this, but why didn't she say anything?
I never said anything, first of all, because we all know I wouldn't have been believed.
She understood the position she was in. This was a famous guy who, even to this day, he admitted what he did. It's on tape. He's done an interview about it with Katie Couric. All that stuff. There's people who still defend him. So she knew no one was going to believe her. Not to mention she had been in a situation like that when she was younger and no one believed her then. In the next part, we're going to start going into his slow ascent into seventh heaven. But in between seventh heaven and all of this stuff that was going on in the 80s, he wrote some rather concerning novels and played some really concerning characters. I will see you there, and I hope you have a good day.